Welcome to the stage, Lena Sundquist. You have extensive experience from leading positions in innovation, sales, marketing, and also developing environmental technology business. And now you are the CEO at Klimion, a company that transforms waste heat into energy.
Yep.
So what sparked your interest from the beginning in technology, environment, and sort of combining the two?
I've had that interest all my life. Already since I was a child, and already at high school I studied environment. I had that as an extra topic, and that is what I worked with for my whole career. And at Alfa Laval, for my 15 years, that is what I worked with.
Yes.
To develop environmental solutions and building businesses around that globally.
So that's really your mission?
Yeah, and it was a long time ago since I decided to devote my career into environmental solutions.
Thank you. Let's hear your presentation.
Yeah, thanks. Hello, everyone. As said in the beginning, I'm the CEO of Klimion. We're a Swedish clean tech company, and our core business model is around sustainability. And also do good is one of our core values, so that sustainability and do good is integrated into everything we do. And our vision at Klimion is to reduce global CO2 emissions and accelerate the use of sustainable energy with our heat power solutions. And I will come back to heat power, but first start with energy. And according to Energy or International Energy Agency, energy stands for 3/4 of global greenhouse gases emissions. And if you look into how energy is produced, the majority comes from fossil fuels. So 80% of energy today comes from fossil fuels. And we see that the need for energy and the need for electricity increases all the time. We're becoming more people on this planet. We consume more. And also the green transition in itself, like electric cars, batteries, green steel, that also demands more electricity. So if we're going to succeed with the green transition, we really need to get away from fossil fuel and produce electricity in another way. And we can see that many sustainable sources for electricity, like wind power, solar power, hydropower, that's increasing in the system, but from a very low level and not at all to the extent that fossil fuel is increasing. So we need to get away from fossil fuel and produce electricity in a much more sustainable way. And our solution with heat power, that is taking heat and convert that into electricity. And we call that heat power. And heat you can find heat in many various ways around the world. And a lot of this heat is not used to its full extent. For example, on board ships, ships' engines produces a lot of waste heat, which is not fully being used. It's just cooled away by the seawater, and that heat can convert it into electricity on board. That's one of the areas we work with. Also, power stations, they have a lot of waste heat that can be used much more. On industries, there is a lot of excess heat. In Sweden, sometimes that extra heat from industries are used for district heating, but not to its full extent. And if you look into European or worldwide perspective, that is often not being used at all. So energies can be much more energy efficient if they would use the heat more efficiently that they have available. And the fourth area that we are engaged with is geothermal power. So in many places in the world, there is heat available underground that can be converted into electricity. And I will not go into the full technical solution, but the basics around our technology is that we take waste heat that is going through a heat exchanger and then heating up an organic fluid inside our units. And this organic fluid has a lower boiling point than water, so it starts to evaporize. It drives a turbine and a generator producing electricity. And then it's cooled down by cold water and then circulating in our units. So as long as there is heat available and cooling source available, this technology continuously producing electricity 24/7. So it's not weather dependent like wind power or solar power. And we produce this in units with a maximum capacity of 355 kilowatt. And they are being produced in Sweden. And we're testing all these units at our site in Kista outside Stockholm before they are being shipped to our customers. And 1.5 years ago, we launched a new product that is much more cost efficient, because as many as you have talked about here today as well, it's not only about sustainability, but you also need to build a business around it. So we need to make sure that we can deliver a good business case for our customers. So making sure that our products both gives good environmental benefits for our customers, but also good economical benefits for our customers. So we have designed this to have a payback time of maximum 5 years, including our products, installation and operation of the units. And the driving forces then, it's of course a growing demand for electricity. We know the demand for electricity is going up here in Sweden, and we see the rest, and we see the same in the rest of the world. It's also a high cost of electricity. And if you look on, for example, a European scale, electricity cost is still quite low here in Sweden. It's much higher in the rest of Europe. So there is a drive to find new solutions to produce electricity and also to save on electricity. And then, of course, decarbonization. And also what we see now is energy independence, that many countries don't want to be dependent on electricity from other countries, and also don't want to be dependent on imported fossil fuels. And this is one case where we are installing our units now. It's a PET recycling plant in Lithuania. And Lithuania is actually quite an interesting country because it was the first country that moved out of the former Soviet Union. So they have a real drive now to be more energy independent, not having to import so much fossil fuel. And on this site, they are producing PET resins, and it's the primary product for producing PET plastics. And it's one of the biggest sites like this in Europe. And they have 3 process lines, and they will install our units on 2 of those. And we have service engineers now there installing those Climon units at the sites. And it will make the sites more energy efficient. They don't have to buy as much electricity from the grid, and it also gives them a lot of environmental benefits. Another area where we're involved is in geothermal power. So we have units on Iceland taking in heat from the ground and producing electricity from that locally. And this electricity is used by the local city there in Iceland. And geothermal power is not easily to find in the Nordic countries, you can say, except for Iceland. But in US or several countries in Asia and Australia, there they use quite a lot of geothermal power. And we see now that also in Europe, there is more initiatives to produce electricity from geothermal power. So especially around the Alps, there is a lot of projects for this in Europe. Then move over to a total different industry, and that's the maritime industry. And on land, as we know, everything that will be possible to electrify will be electrified, like electric cars, electrical vehicles, trucks, everything that can be electrified will be electrified on land. But if there's ships trading from one part of the world to another part of the world, it's just not possible to put electrical engines on those. The battery packs will be way too big, and it will not be possible to charge them. So at least for the rest of my lifetime, there will be some kind of combustion engines on ships trading globally. Today, they are mainly using fossil fuels for this. And the shipping industry emits today around 3% of global CO2 emissions. And they have a lot of initiatives now to reduce that. And there's both coming legislation to make ships more energy efficient, but there's also coming a lot of CO2 taxes on this. So there's a big drive in the maritime sector as well to make ships more energy efficient and reduce CO2 emissions. And there are several things being done to make ships more energy efficient. One is changing the fuel. So traditionally, it's only been more or less fossil fuels on board ships. We see now that more and more ships are being built to also be able to run on biofuels like methanol and e-methanol. And this is a project, it's Maersk that builds ships in South Korea at one of the biggest yards in the world. And it's a series of 6 vessels. They will be prepared to be run on e-methanol. And our units will be installed on board these ships to make them more energy efficient, reduce fuel cost, and also have less environmental impact. So we're doing a lot of things to make our customers more energy efficient, reduce fuel cost and reduce the amount of fuel that they are using, and also make them not be so dependent on buying electricity from the grid and making them more decrease their environmental footprint. But in addition to that, it's also like a number of, you have also talked about here today, that's also so important what you do inside the company. So here's our 3 values that we have at Climon. And the first and maybe most important one is do good. And that is part of everything we do within the company, both from an environmental and sustainable point of view, to also make sure that we as a company has as low environmental footprint as possible, and continuously measuring that and take actions to minimize our own environmental footprint. Be a team player. Of course, that's important both inside the company, but like many of you talked about here today, also have a great teamwork together with customers, sub-suppliers, and all our other stakeholders. And then always deliver. I mean, really be committed in delivering on all visions and our targets. And I think that's something also important for all of us working with sustainability, that is so important to get into actions. And we see that there's a lot of things being done now with more legislation coming. We see now that banks and investors are investing more in environmental companies and products. And we see there's a lot of activities around this, but it needs to go faster. And we need to reduce emissions even on a faster pace. Thank you.